So, we're here. This is basically another edition of Trail Etiquette. We're trying to do like a series on the channel. Just discussing like trail closures, how to be on the trail, just general everything that people should know. I feel like they should have access to something that they can watch and see of like just general knowledge for off-roading that covers everything. Whether it's side-by-sides, Jeeps, buggies, dirt bikes, anything.
Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Ranch Pratt. I'm the president of the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Been a board member or president for the last 4 years. And, we've had a lot going on, even down here, a lot going on. 317 miles closed. There's a lot of areas that are being reviewed. For anybody who likes to use the land, there's a lot of bad things in the works. And it's nice, though, on the flip side, there's been a lot of come together in the community, both rock crawlers, overlanders, UTVs, motorcycles. And that's really what has to happen if we're going to combat that, because all of us combined just eclipse their numbers.
Right.
Our voice is much stronger, but we have to state the things we need to state united. And
that's the biggest thing that I think is. I think they're really good at that in general, of getting the groups to argue.
Yeah.
Because if you can have the side-by-sides arguing with the Jeepers, then they're not combining to use their numbers to make changes the way that they could. And that's basically politics 101.
Yeah, divide and conquer is
exactly.
That.
So that's the biggest thing, is if we could just stop with the pissing match and just unite for a common good.
No, I agree. My history is, I come from the side-by-side background. I'm also a huge Jeeper. And you watching both different groups just clash over each other. You talk in the side-by-side community, it's the Jeepers that want to do this, and they were the worst of the worst. And then you talk with the Jeepers, and then side-by-sides are the worst of the worst. You know what I mean? The simple fact is for the environmentalists, we are all the worst of the worst, right? They want all of our trails pretty much closed.
Yeah.
And we can't allow that. And if we're not unified, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, you look at the people who would want to shut us down. If there's clash between, say, UTVs and Jeepers or motorcycles or whatever, you would ask one of those guys. Maybe we ask a UTV guy about the Jeeps, and they're like, oh, those guys are... Who knows what the opinion is, right? They're arrogant. They're always in the way. You ask a Jeeper, and it's like, oh, the UTV guys are going too fast, or too loud, or they go off the track. Whatever the case. All of those arguments that the environmentalists have, the people who would close down our public lands, have about every single one of us. They have it about motorcyclists, trials bikes, motocross, enduros. They have it about UTVs. They have it about Jeeps. They have it about every modality that goes out there and enjoys the public lands. And that's something that we all need to realize. And there's one other thing. I think that trail etiquette is very critical. It's very critical.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you talk about propaganda, maybe, what people are saying. Trails don't get shut down with misuse as the result. So when I say that, I have to be careful, because trail etiquette could be used against us legally, but it's not very often. Yeah. And I think it's because, by and large, people who use off-road vehicles of all sorts are environmentalists. They care about... We went out on Stillbender yesterday. We saw maybe 4 or 5 pieces of garbage on that entire trail. Picked them all up. They care. Four-wheelers care. UTV guys care. So we talk about that problem, and the opposition throws that problem in our face, but we do a damn good job of making sure that isn't the real problem. And we just have to keep that up.
Right. You touched on the 317 miles of trail that was closed. And there's a lot of that I find interesting, how that went down. As a whole, we're very reactionary.
Yeah.
So I remember them posting up that they were going to have open houses, they were going to have meetings, they were going to have this, and and nobody showed up except the people that want to close it down. And so then BLM was like, okay, well, we had more support of this. And so then it happened, and then everybody starts losing their mind about it, and it's like, wait. You were given the opportunity, but so many people don't want to take the effort before it happens. And that's where I feel we have a lot of disconnect, is you need to go out and show support. And as angry as people get about the BLM, they're just doing their job, the most part. And if they're closing a trail, it's because they were told to. Like, that person that's out there putting the sign up, you don't need to direct anger at that person. That person did not shut the trail down.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people do that. I see that all the time in the comment section. I've got bolt cutters. There's no trail shut down. And it's like, what are you proving the point to?
You're not.
You're not helping the situation.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you're reacting after the fact. It should have been before.
Yeah.
You should have been at that town meeting.
Yeah, like show up and support it the entire time, not just after it was closed down. But I also know that they only shut down like 4 or 5 actual trails, but a lot of what they shut down was the trail braiding, right?
Yeah, so they're for people who like dispersed camping, you guys should be really mad.
Yeah.
Because those little tiny spurs add up to a lot of miles. So we're fortunate that way. They shut down a lot of routes that lead though to lookouts and so forth. And then they left a lot of routes that lead to nothing. And then they have no real obstacles. There's no challenge to those routes that are left. And the challenge that I see with that is that people going out there now can't access a lot of the overlooks and views and so forth. They can go on this trail or that road, and one might say, well, then there's plenty of places to go, but there's no value to those roads. There's no obstacles for people who are recreating, and they go to nowhere. So then they won't get used, and then what happens is, then enters in the number one reason they shut down trails, and that is reclamation. A trail doesn't get used, brush and stuff grows through on the trail. They look at it and go, well, the land has reclaimed this. We're going to designate it as such. Done.
Right.
And there's almost no opposition to those, and that's what's really scary.
Well, I know, like, out there on 7 miles, and a lot of the, like, 7 Mile Rim and a lot of that, you see a lot of where there's roads up there, and then you see a lot of people, and just anybody, I don't care who it is, whatever you're on, but you see people that are like, well, I need to be on that road. So then they just drive over there.
Yeah.
And one set of tracks becomes a road within a month. Like, one set of tracks over that way. And so I felt that was a lot of what they were shutting down, was a lot of the connector trails that didn't necessarily need to be there or hadn't been there long term. They weren't, what's the word, legacy or whatever. They weren't
very established.
Yeah, they hadn't been there forever. But I mean, like, Top of the World is another one where they're literally bypassing nothing. You know, there's like a little rough section of rocks that are this tall, but it's a rough section, so they just blaze through this way, and now that looks more like the trail than the trail did.
Yeah. You know, we were talking about that on the trail yesterday, because there's wide spots, right? You get over here and you're in the sand instead of these little rubble. And I think that's a mentality that people should shift. If you're going to be into off-road, be into off-road. If you're going to go rock crawling, and all of it isn't obstacles. There's some butt-beating boulders,
yeah,
that you just kind of thump through. And, but you shouldn't avoid those by going off of the trail.
Exactly.
Because then that just, pretty soon the sand is out of those new areas, and it just gets wider and wider.
Well, yeah, that's like Poison Spider's another one, where it's just now it's a swath of 75-foot swath of trail that goes through, because this got bumpy, so we'll go to the edge.
Yeah.
Then this gets bumpy, so we'll go to the edge. And it's like, you're driving in a $30,000 machine with the best shocks on the planet. It's going to be bumpy.
Yeah.
But then there's the other, then there's the other stigma or issue is, well, it's off-road. Why do I have to be on the trail?
Yeah, off-road
and it's like off-road is going off the pavement, not just go where you want.
We see that on Hell's Revenge. I mean, a long time ago when you would drive Hell's Revenge, for the most part, especially the flat areas, it was pretty narrow. Right now, You go past there and it's wide.
Yeah.
Everybody's high banking, and they're high banking with the full throttle, and they're spitting the sand everywhere, and it's only getting it wider and wider. It's stay on the trail. It's not that difficult.
Right.
You know, if there's a bypass, a legitimate bypass,
An
take the
established
bypass.
bypass.
Stay on the bypass. Don't create your own.
But what establishes bypass?
Well, I think it really just depends on the trail rating itself. You know, I mean, there's the gatekeeper behind the rocks, for instance. You know what I mean? There's a bypass just around the corner for that. You know, for somebody with a less built Jeep or a side by side or something that can take that if they opt out of the gatekeeper.
Well, you get into that. You get into that gray area because
and that's what you were talking about.
well, everything was a bypass, or everything became a bypass because. But then, like, a lot of obstacles will have, like, it's a well worn in, it's an actual bypass. But then that doesn't mean, like, if the bypass is too hard for you, don't just blaze out through the sagebrush and make a new one. But then there's the argument, well, that wasn't a bypass till somebody blazed through the sagebrush and made a new one. So it's a hard
gray
discussion
area.
to have, because no matter what you say, someone is going to have an argument to have with you.
Well, and one of the things that I think would be nice, and I'm really, like I stated, I don't know of trails that have been shut down because of the stuff we're talking about. I do 100% agree with it, 100%. But when I'm looking out for the future of off-roading, like there's a serious problem in that what's the process for getting a trail open? I want to make a new trail, and I want to do it 100% above board. How do I go about that? It's probably not going to happen. Right? That's a really tall order.
Here in Moab? Probably not.
Probably not going to happen. Now, other areas, if it's designated open, that's a different area, story. If it's a park, but I'm talking in just BLM land, not open, just like Moab is. Most of the area is not.
Do you deal with Colorado with Jeff Bates?
I do.
Yeah, Jeff Bates in Colorado. I think they've opened 2 or 3 new trails in the last few years. I want to say 10 years. And I was talking with him after they opened Pinch Point. And Hard Knocks and Pinch Point are both buggy trails. And he said the paperwork and everything he's been doing on that, I believe 7 years.
Yeah.
And that is someone actually adamantly talking to people, going through, doing the going out, scouting it, showing the BLM what they want to do, getting an idea for signs, environmental assessments, all the stuff. Like, that's somebody actively pursuing it to try and get it. And that's a huge investment for somebody that's just like, I want to make a new trail. And it's like,
yeah, it's a ton of time, and that's exactly the point. And yet, so for us, and one of the challenges I think we as a community face is that we're a community of what? We love going out and going on trails with whatever modality we have. That's our love. But the opposition, their love, is the land use and getting it shut down to us bad guys, right? And so there's a huge delta there in what our passions are. And then again, there's no way to open new trails. You talk about 317 miles. It's like, well, heck, how long is it going to take us based on your 7 years thing to open up 317 miles of new trails?
right.
That the trend is not sweet, and I think as a group we have to not only fight back for trails that are being shut down. And I don't mean to segue a little bit from what we're talking about, but also, like, hey, there's got to be some offensive stuff that we can do. There's got to be a way. There needs to be a means for us to open up a trail besides somebody just going and crashing through a bunch of brush or making a trail illegally,
Right.
and then saying, oh, this thing's been here a long time, we'd like to get it open, and then going through a process of taking a trail and making it official.
That's what a lot of people, I think, with you saying that the 317 miles, we get a lot of that. I have people calling the shop and calling all the time, and they're like, well, I heard Moab's closed. And it's like, no, Moab's not closed. Well, they shut 317 miles of trail down. Like anywhere else, a park in the rest of the country, if they shut 317 miles of trails down, that park would be shut.
Yeah.
So that whole thing, and that's what we try to get across to people, is there is so much out here. Yes, they shut a huge portion of it down. Yes, it's horrible that my daughter won't be able to see some of those overlooks and stuff like that because of what they did. But there is still a lot of area to explore. So please don't think you can't come out here. But then how do we reopen that?
How do we open some more? Yeah, it's sketchy because once it's closed, it's like, oh, but you know, maybe it's temporary. Maybe they're doing an assessment, but it's pretty hard to get those things back to open.
Yeah.
They've been even temporarily shut down.
It's good that you mentioned that there was trails being made, right?
Yeah.
And the time that it takes to create that, get it on the map, and approval is exhausting. That's exciting news. But we are on the 12th hour.
Yeah.
Not just in Moab, but the Henrys, the Barracks Trail. I mean, there's places all over southern Utah that are just on the radar to getting closed down, and that we're at the final stages of that, right?
Yeah.
So some of the important things that we need to do, and that would help, would be the Trail Saver program through UPLA, you know, Utah Public Lands Alliance. So basically what Trail Saver is if you go out on a trail that day, that very moment, whenever you get cell phone service again, click on the UPLA QR code. And it's just a short little thing that you can fill out, name, address, and a description of the trail, you know, what you liked about it. Upload as many pictures or as few pictures as you want. That automatically gets uploaded into a database within the UPLA program, right? All that information is already stored. It's already evidence that there's a trail being used, but it's also being used frequently. Because, you know, the more people use it, the more people that do the Trail Saver program,
right?
You know, and then that just goes straight to the BLM. And it's a new program. I think it's going to be a huge success. It'll keep things from getting closed, in my opinion.
Right.
Because if we don't use them, like you said, a bush will grow up, and then all of a sudden, SUA comes in and says, "This bush wasn't here a year ago. It's now." No longer
it's
a trail.
reclaimed.
Yeah.
We're doing one similar with the Lost Trails Guidebook, and that's a list, it's a book of trails that are at risk. And it's not because of the main topic, which is trail etiquette. It's about people not using those trails. You don't use them. And there's some irony, right? You don't use them, there's no impact. And we want to be low impact, but if there's no impact, that gets shut down as well. It's a terrible situation. Like the Blue Ribbon Coalition does a lot of fighting. We do a lot of in-court stuff. That's our number one expense. And if we go into court and we say, these people are using this trail, we can record how many people are using a trail.
Yeah.
So don't tell us it's not being used. It's black and white right here. And especially if there's criteria where you've got a number of people using it, you know, the bigger groups are kind of better, quite frankly. And if we can show that and take some pictures, that's outstanding. And I think more of those types of situations need to happen. We need to be recording it. Those are offensive moves that we can take.
Yeah. If we're not using it, we're going to lose it.
We're going to lose it
100%.
for sure. Yep. So, yeah, and that's one of the challenges. It's like the Jeep Badge of Honor. It's an awesome thing. And yet, you could run around and collect those badges and really use those trails, but there's all those other trails that need people on them.
Right. It's not just the Badge of Honor trails.
Yeah, you've got to go to those other trails. And so it's good and bad. I think that it's a challenge too. There's a lot of weird things like that, like here in Moab. I would say there's not a lot of people that would argue too hard that Moab is not a mecca for rock crawling.
Yeah.
It is.
And I get such a chuckle out of that when everybody's like, you know, Sand Hollow's the new Moab.
Well, okay, so that's exactly where I was going. Because
sorry.
You'll see like the 317 shutdown. Right when that happened, there's a lot of chatter on public or social media. People are saying, well, to heck with Moab, to heck with Grand County. You know, there's challenges there too. But we're going to go to Sand Hollow, and it's like Sand Hollow is awesome. I love that. I love that it's like one obstacle after another, and I really enjoy that. But there's a huge difference between Sand Hollow and here. There's a huge difference between a state park and not a state park, right? And the principle of it should one hit home with people, but also it's great to go a few miles and go over a ton of obstacles and have a blast. It's also a different type of four-wheeling altogether. To go on a trail that takes all day, that has a number of vistas, that's a trail.
Yeah.
And it's a different experience. And to allow yourself to not have one of those because it's difficult, that's like getting in an argument or a fight and walking away after you've just got you just got it handed to you and flipping somebody off. You still lost the fight.
Yeah.
Right? So to say, to heck with Moab, we're going over here, is to say, we lost the fight, but you guys, we don't need you anyway.
Well, and somebody said to me that really resonated was Moab helps Sand Hollow a lot because Moab deflects a lot of the scrutiny and all this stuff. And so as soon as you lose Moab, all these people are then going to focus on Sand Hollow to be the next thing to shut down. Or restrict or something. You know what I mean? So like, it's like, you might hate Moab, but it's doing good things in the aspect of it's drawing the attention of all the naysayers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, nothing's going to replace Moab.
You can't replace this.
Yeah, nothing is going to replace this. Yes, you can go to Sand Hollow, and I love, for vacation we go to Sand Hollow because there's more extreme stuff. I can push my buggy farther than I can around here.
But that goes back to kind of what you were saying. There's more extreme stuff because it's open.
Yeah,
I can go here or I can go there. Our very conversation is I can only go here.
Yeah.
And because I can only go here, I have to go here and then a long ways to the next obstacle.
But Moab used to be an open use area.
They probably right. If BLM is managing it properly, they should look at all of the people that come to Moab, all of the people that recreate here, and they are managing that. Shutting it down is not managing it. And there's stickers out there, and it's really right. But the other thing that's interesting. It's what also the BLM or any other land use agency should be doing is looking at Moab and saying, okay, it's a mecca. There's a ton of people that go there. Everybody focuses on that. And why? Because they're concentrated here. How do we fix it? We open more area. We dilute the problem that we're seeing, that they feel they're seeing here in Moab. And we open areas in other, because there is red rock in other places.
Yeah.
There is beautiful granite trails in other places, or there could be, but they have to open it up. And then that dilutes the impact of here and anywhere else, and that's true management, at least in my opinion.
Right. Well, and that was the other, it just reminded me. So that was the funny thing is I had a conversation with some people that came in, and actually some people I was recovering. And the whole 317 miles got shut down. And they were mountain bikers in their Sprinter van. And they had gone out to somewhere and they were turning around and got stuck. And I went out there to get them, and they're like, well, they were kind of mad because the area was shut down. There was a sign that said, you can't go here anymore. And they were pushing for the closures for motorized.
And they got mechanized.
Well, but then now they can't drive their Sprinter van out there to get to where they used to mountain bike. So now they're 10 miles away from where they used to unload to go mountain bike. And they're like, well, I didn't think you meant us. And it's like, no, motorized. This Sprinter van is motorized.
Yeah.
So yeah, you shot yourself in the foot. Good job.
Mechanized means their bikes are too.
Yeah.
And it's mechanized. It's funny because you talk about that area, and if that whole area were shut down like they want, I couldn't even get to the top of the plateau. I mean, I think people would be at risk. Starting it with no motorized use at all.
Right.
That place would never be seen by humans. Very rarely. Except for search and rescue, where we're looking for the guy who wanted to try it.
Right.
I honestly think that's part of what they want.
Well, see, and I heard that they were trying to shut it down so that anybody that rafted the river would not be able to see anybody. And everyone that I know that has ever rafted the river thinks it's cool to just be rafting along, and then you randomly see someone like, oh, look, there's other life out here. There's other people. And I've never seen it be a oh, they're ruining the landscape because they're also out here. I've only ever seen, oh, look, they're also out here enjoying it. And it's super cool to see somebody when we're in the middle of nowhere and we see someone else.
Yeah, I was a member of one of the rafting Facebook groups, right? And there was that big debate on there. Well, they're closing it down because nobody wants to raft and then hear a side-by-side or a Jeep up there. Like, and most of the comments were in our favor. Like, we raft this often. Rarely do we see or hear a motorized vehicle up above on the rim.
Yeah.
So you're right. There's a lot of different elements to this. You know, the wildlife, the bighorn sheep. I mean, how often have you guys been, especially you, where you're out here daily, see a bighorn sheep, and it is like not even affected by your presence?
I've been on the side of the road out by Cisco fixing this truck, and I actually took pictures of the antelope that was just walking right by me.
Yeah.
And there were cars driving by on the highway. He did not care.
No,
he
those
was
are
crazy
all.
and having fun.
I think the reality is reasonable and rational people get along. Reasonable and rational people recognize that, hey, you do this and I do that, and that's okay.
Exactly.
It's those fringes. It's those fanatic. I use that word, and I know it's kind of harsh, but fringes that cause all the problems. They're loud, and it's kind of a bully thing, right? They're loud.
Yeah.
They push their way, but their numbers are few, and for some reason, I guess I'll state this, and I might gain some enemies, but for whatever reason, we back down.
Right.
We move out of the way, and you see that even in the BLM, and this is why I got involved with Blue Ribbon Coalition. I've never been a big land use guy. You know, I had Terraflex. I was manufacturing. I did a lot of extreme rock crawling with ARCA and U-Rock, and that was not my thing. But I dealt with the BLM a lot for permits and stuff.
Right.
But then you see that land use groups who, again, are passionate about the fight sue the BLM for pretty much everything. They make a decision they're probably going to get sued. And then they lean away from that lawsuit, and where do they lean into? They lean into us, because we never push back.
Right.
And that's what actually made me think, we need to push back. I want to get involved in this with a group that actually pushes back. And as a community, well, first of all, as a community, we need to compliment ourselves because we've done such a great job in the last year. The awareness and the involvement that people would show, the support has been so much better than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever. But we should be pushing back a lot harder.
Right.
We shouldn't tolerate it. We have rights too, and we're not just going to allow the BLM, because they're being pushed through lawsuits into our area, to do that and call that land management.
At the same time, you realize their position, because when you get to that point of no matter what you do, you're going to get sued, you tend to shy away from any of that. I understand look, we'll just shut this down then. We'll just do this. We'll do that. Because no matter what we do, it's going to be bad. Let's anger the guys that don't yell at us and don't sue us.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to say, look, I know it stings. I know the individual, Sally at this BLM officer, Bill, or whatever. They're not bad people. They're not. But as a whole, an organization has a job to do. Like, we didn't create that job. It is there, and it's your responsibility to do something. If Sally or Bill want to leave, then leave. And somebody else has to come in and do that job. But the job is to balance.
Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah. Yeah.
And closing it so that you don't have an argument is not management.
I'm in your shoes. I had ARCA, U-Rock was competitive series in the early days, and you could lay a golden egg and somebody would say it's too porous.
Yeah.
It's hard to make a decision for the masses and have people happy. But that's your job.
Yeah.
So they need to do it. We need to not feel bad to a point that we say, okay, well, go ahead and shut it down. We don't want you to have to be upset.
Yeah.
We're protecting our public lands for the generations to come.
That's right.
Yeah.
It really is quite a selfless thing because it takes time. So by the time I'm not able to go out on these trails, excuse me, there will be trails for my lifetime unless something catastrophic happens.
Yeah.
But I look at my granddaughters.
You want other
people
to experience it. Yeah.
I've had some great moments.
Oh, yeah.
I want them to have those too.
Yeah. if certain members of the community on both sides of the side-by-side and the Jeep could actually sit down and have a conversation and say, yes, there are bad apples. Yes, side-by-siders do bad stuff. Jeepers do bad stuff. Single trackers do bad stuff. Yes. Now, how are we going to get an education and explain to people the proper trail etiquette, how to behave on the trail, and how to not give them more ammunition to close more stuff down?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I could look at your profession and say there's good and bad. I could look at retail and say there's good and bad. Say there's good and bad manufacturers. There's good and bad people. Would you agree?
Yeah, but
okay, so that's done. No, it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know, everybody knows good and bad people. And they do stuff. And they have jobs. So there's no reason to talk about, is it all one group or all one other group? It's not. It's people. And they're good primarily, and there's a couple of bad apples. But what really would be the better argument was, how do we take all those good people, forget the ones that are bad, educate where you can. And there's only so much you can do. You know that, right? You got bad guys or bad guys.
Yeah.
You do the best you can with those guys. The good guys, they need to come together and fight. With a united front against what's going on out here, because all of this stuff is just distraction. But the real problem.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, when you say side by sides are doing this, and then you're like, well, I own a side by side. Did you just say that I did? And it's like, no. And but I think that's a lot of when the conversation starts, everyone gets defensive.
And I'll be the first to admit, my side-by-side user group is probably the bigger problem. Absolutely. It's a power sport. Anyone and their dog can go buy a side-by-side without following any of the rules or anything like that. They got unlimited power at their foot, and they just rip it up.
Do you think that
our user group is the worst, for sure? And we need to educate our side-by-side users, I think, more than anybody else.
I think the ease of getting a capable machine is way easier.
That's right where I was going. So your numbers are bigger.
Yes.
So your percentage of bad apples is greater.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying. Is that right?
Utah has close to 300,000 OHV registered vehicles, in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
The vast majority of that is a side-by-side operator. It really is.
Yeah.
So we as side-by-side people need to come together and protect our land more than the Jeepers, and I do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, it just brought to my mind, I got into Jeeping, and I mean, it really bit me. And I got into it because I was asked to come down here and go Jeeping at Easter Jeep Safari. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I didn't want to do it because in my mind, what I saw from off-roading before that, and I was like 18, was parties in the canyon, people drunk and bombing up hills and rolling down. And that's exactly what we're talking about not doing. And that's what entered my mind. I'm like, I have no desire to do that. And then I was kind of guilted into coming down, and then the rest is history, right? You come down, you see the land, it bites you, and you're hooked.
Yeah.
But it's ironic a little bit that the stuff we're talking about not doing is the big turnoff that I had for off-roading altogether before I started.
Well, and that's a lot of people. That's the mentality they have when you say, I'm going to go off-roading. And the social media thing, the big parties down south that they do with the giant mud trucks where everybody's got a beer in hand and they're just racing around and breaking stuff and doing all this. So then when you go, I'm going to go to Moab off-roading, some people have that in their mind of like, oh, that's what you're going to do? And it's like, no, we're going to go out here and put some in four-wheel drive and go up to a beautiful overlook and see this amazing land that we have. Like, that's what we're going to do.
That's what we're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is right. Like, you see parties and that whole, the crazy atmosphere. That's really not off-roading. That's a rare...
Yeah,
that's a rare
That's
situation.
A small percentage.
And it will affect the way people might kind of vote in their head about shutting trails down or not. So we really should focus on that for that very reason. It's not because trails get shut down because of that, but people don't like us because of that.
Yeah, that's
People don't
that's,
like us because
that's
of
the
that.
mentality. That's what they see.
Yes.
Or when you say off-roading, that's their vision in their head.
Yeah, so we got to work on that. But at the very same time, even if that were true, which it isn't, people still have rights.
Yeah.
You know, you live in a republic. You can't trample one guy's rights. I mean, it's his rights. Even if every single person disagrees with him, he still has that right. We can't lose that. That's where I'm coming from.
That's the mentality we need to get back into. We're straying every day away from that, and I don't even want to go there. But yes, no, you're allowed to have you're allowed. Somebody's allowed to think differently and have the same right as you.
Yes.
And that's what so many people are missing.
Yeah. It's like we all have rights, and you guys can only use the ones that are in line with mine.
Yeah.
That's
It's like I feel this way, or the new favorite term is I'm offended.
Oh,
Then be offended. You can be offended. That doesn't change. That doesn't change my right to go do this.
yeah. We're just extras.
That's the idea. Thinking with my noodle.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I don't know what else we need to touch on, or if there is more. Or,
I think all of our talking points have been covered.
sweet. And like I said, this is a series I'm trying to put into the channel to have. We're going to call it Trail Etiquette, where, you know, local business owners can come and talk to us and discuss some of the issues or things, and just how you want to act on the trail, how you want to present yourself, and basically how you want to represent the off-road community as, you know, being out there on the trail. Because every time you're out there on the trail, especially with the new world, with everyone having a camera and a phone, no matter what you do out there, you are representing the entire community. So represent it well. So thank you guys for coming out.
And
yeah, thank you for doing all this, and thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Super cool.
I wait to see you.